Okay, everybody, welcome. Thanks for joining us tonight for the learning of Hilchot Shabbat. Tonight we will be continuing in part 2 of Melechet Kotev, which is the Melacha of writing on Shabbat. And we learned last time that one of the 39 Melachot is that we're not allowed to write down things on Shabbat. And that was because in the Mishkan, they had to write down letters on the different beams in order to know which beam went where when they built the Mishkan. So the beam that was on the east side had to stay on the east, the beam on the west had to be on the west, the beam on the north and the south. Each beam had to be in the same place. So in order for that to happen, they had to write letters on each beam. So as we've learned in the past, whatever was done to construct the Mishkan, that's what we're not allowed to do on Shabbat. For that reason, we're not allowed to write on Shabbat. Now, we spoke a lot about that in the last class. Today, I want to focus on the next part of this melacha, which is the rabbinic things that are prohibited because of the concern that it may lead to writing welcome. Okay, so as we've spoken about in the past, on a Torah level, there is absolutely no problem to buy or sell anything on Shabbat. There's absolutely no problem to hand over a big stack of $100 bills, right? And to hand it over midoraita, no problem on a Torah level, meaning before the Chachamim came and said that it's asur. Now, the reason for this is because there's no melacha involved. So I come to your store and I ask for, a pound of sugar, kilo of sugar, and I take it and I pay you for it. Midoraita, which melacha has been done? Nothing. No melacha has been done whatsoever, right? At all on a Torah level. It's a very big surprise for a lot of people, right? On a Torah level, no problem. Go to the store. However, funny enough, welcome. So the funny idea is, let's say there's no eruv in that town, and the guy takes the sugar back home. That would be a melacha d'oraita of carrying, right? So the buying and the selling, technically, midoraita is not a problem, at least according to most authorities. But the act of carrying, if there's no eruv, that would be a melacha d'oraita, right? If it's a public domain. At any rate, why then is it prohibited to do business? Why is it that we know that you cannot do business on Shabbat? So we mentioned in the past already, one of the reasons is, as we learned when we learned Melechet Mechatech, cutting things to a set measurement, to a set size, that could be something that happens in business, and that's a problem. So out of a fear that somebody might do Melechet Mechatech, cutting something to a set size, which is one of the 39 Melachot. And today, what's relevant to us is also incredibly important, which is that business could lead to writing. When people make a sale, they write down what they sold. They take inventory. They go ahead and somebody borrows something. They owe money. So they don't want to forget. They have to write it down. So business usually involves writing. And therefore, welcome. Since business involves writing, therefore, it is something which the Chachamim said one may not be involved in any business transaction on Shabbat because we are very scared that it may lead a person to write 2 letters on Shabbat, and writing 2 letters on Shabbat is a melacha d'oraita of Kotev on Shabbat. Is it clear? Clear? So it turns out that the whole big business and not going to work, a lot of different types of work are melacha anyway, but just transactions of business actually is rabbinically prohibited due to the fact that it is very, very likely to cause somebody to write something down on Shabbat. Okay, clear?
So funny because people think that the whole idea of business is really supposed to rest.
Right. So it's not wrong. It's not wrong. It's true as well. It says Bayom HaShevi'i Tishbot. 7th day you shall rest. There is a concept, leman yanuach. Person is supposed to have rest on Shabbat. But is it a melacha? In other words, like this. Let's put it this way. We spoke about this in the beginning of our series. let's say I'm a caterer on Shabbat. I make a kiddush for you for Brit Milah. Let's say I'm a waiter serving people at your lunch that you have for the bar mitzvah, right? I'm working like a dog. I'm sweating buckets. I'm back and forth in the kitchen again. I'm making money. People give me tips, not on Shabbat, after Shabbat, right? So I'm working and I'm earning, but did I do one melacha? No. I didn't do a single melacha. All I did was I carried a plate from the kitchen to your table. Only thing is I did it for 1,000 people, right? So it's working very hard, right? But is it melacha? No, we all do that. We all carry plates from one place to in the kitchen, from the dining room to the, we do that all the time. There's no melacha there. I'm going to make money in a permitted way. How is it permitted? If it gets absorbed into a larger payment, because I don't only work on Shabbat, I also work on Tuesday and Wednesday. So the payment that I get for Tuesday and Wednesday is going to be, Shabbat will go into that payment as well. So it gets absorbed into a larger payment. So here I am, working very hard on Shabbat, making money, and no melacha. It's permitted 100%. Would we advise someone to do that? No. That's not proper. It's not a good life. Shabbat, like you said, is supposed to rest, it's supposed to learn Torah, it's supposed to be energized, it's supposed to be having a wonderful Shabbat with your family, enjoying, and that's what it's all about. Sit down with the Gemara, sit down with the Mishnah, with your kids, learn. That's what Shabbat's all about. But bottom line, the guy who's working like a dog, is he doing any melacha? No. The guy who's sitting by the TV, clicking his remote from channel to channel, is he doing melacha? Yes. Understand? There are rules. What's considered to be melacha, what's not. Clear? Okay, very good. So this is one of those common misconceptions. Fine. So now question. We know in many shuls, holy synagogues, they sell the kibudim on Shabbat morning. So, or Shabbat afternoon, or even weekdays, they sell. They Ptichat Echal, they go 101, 202, 303, and they sell. It's a sale. They have a way of marking down, not writing, which is a real problem, right? Could really be a problem, because if you don't have it ready, people are going to write it down. So they don't. What they do is they have a system of cards where they have people's names printed out before Shabbat, and they put, a piece of maybe a number that they kind of put a paper clip on top of that card with the number, so they know how much the guy pledged. And there are systems of how to do it without actually writing. So is that okay though? Is that called business? The answer is that's okay. And it's not a problem of business on Shabbat. And the reason is because it's for the sake of a mitzvah. So it's called Cheftzei Shamayim. Cheftzei Shamayim means for the sake of heaven, things that are for the purposes of a mitzvah would be okay to go ahead and to raise money for. So this is raising money for the shul, or welcome. Let's grab another chair. Sorry. Okay, so this is for the purposes of raising money for the shul or for some other organization that's a Hatzalah or Mitaskim or Yeshiva, whatever is necessary, we do it. What happens if you have a situation where you need to write something down? Because if you don't, you're going to forget it. For example, let's say that let's say you're a shul or you have some kind of event that you're running. You're running a singles event or something, okay? And everybody was supposed to pay, I don't know, $50 to enter. Now, there are these select few people that Hashem should bless them. They always happen to just show up out of nowhere, completely oblivious to the fact that they were supposed to pay to get in and whatever, and they made no arrangements. And it just so happens to be that there are 35 such people that just so happen to show up at your event, right? So what do? So it's possible that what you can do if you are expecting that, I'll give you the classic example when this happens. Shuls on the high holidays, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, when everybody knows it's days of judgment, everybody wants to be in shul, and there are just so many more people than you knew would be coming. In other words, you have, let's say, X amount of seats that are reserved, people paid for it, and then there are like another 150 people that are showing up and they don't have a reservation, and they, as far as you're concerned, are not going to pay you a penny to your institution, but they should. Everybody who comes in they have to do something to get their seat for the high holidays. So what they do is, in certain places, they have a goy standing at the door, and the goy tells the goy before he lets the people in, says, "Do you have a seat?" They say, "No." There's no problem. What's your name? What's your address? And then he has another goy writing down the information that he tells them. So he says, "Write down Joe Smith and write down address this and that, write down one seat," and then they send him a bill. So that way they're able to go ahead and they're able to have him, give him a ticket, as they say. That's called amira le'amira. You ask a goy to ask a goy. And when there's a question of a lot of loss of money, you're allowed to do that. So even in this case, you would be permitted to do that. So there's a question of loss of money. Amira le'amira. I can ask a goy to ask another goy. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, she'akol niya b'dvaro. Do we need more space? Do you have no, we're good? Okay. Fine. Can you play Monopoly on Shabbat?
Yeah. But
right?
Wouldn't the money be
What?
all soft?
So the money's not real money. It's not really muktzah because it's not real money. The whole thing is not really business. It's a game. So technically, as far as Monopoly goes on Shabbat, you are allowed to play Monopoly on Shabbat. I did see somebody say that it has to be, in order for it to be not a problem, it needs to be the mitzvah monopoly. There is a monopoly that that they made into like a mitzvot. I have never seen it personally. If somebody wants to be lenient, I think he's allowed to be lenient to play the regular one. Personally, that's what I think. There is, so maybe they have.
But I don't know if that's a mitzvah.
I don't know. I'm not sure.
Jerusalem edition.
I did see this sefer say it should be a mitzvah monopoly. Okay, fine.
What's the when you say you can ask a goy to ask a goy, amira le amira.
Right.
So, but what is that again?
It's whenever there's a loss of money involved, a tremendous loss of money, we rely on that b'di'avad. If there's no other choice, we could rely on that. Okay, so if you had that singles event or whatever it is you were running and you needed to have that because you can't have pre-written cards like in a shul, so then you might be able to rely on that option instead. Okay. Now, like we said, technically, the strict letter of the law has it that buying and selling and all these things are not a problem on Shabbat on a Torah level. We said we're not allowed to do it. Okay, fine, because it may lead to writing. No problem. But what if there's a situation where there's a need? Let's say you're looking in the cabinet and there is no salt. You have no salt in your house. You say, "Oh my gosh, I need salt." There's no salt in the soup. There's no salt for the challah. We need salt. So you happen to have a neighbor. Your neighbor owns the grocery shop across the street. And you go to your neighbor and you ask him, you say, "Listen, do me a favor. Can I go to your store and take a thing of salt from the store?" Right? Like, I don't know, a container of salt? Sure, no problem. So technically, that will be allowed. That's okay to do that on Shabbat. Why? Because for the purposes of you having what you need for Shabbat, the Chachamim were lenient in order to have, and this is the same thing on Yom Tov. For Seudat Shabbat or for Seudat Yom Tov, you need your olive oil or whatever it is. The guy has a bottle of olive oil. So long as a couple of things. Number one, you're not allowed to ask for a specific measurement. You can't say, "I need a kilo of sugar. I need 2 liters of olive oil." You cannot say a specific measurement. That's number one. Number two, you cannot mention a price. You cannot say $5 okay, $10 okay. No, you can't ask that. You have to just say, "I'm taking that bottle." That's it. Now, Obviously, you can't do anything which is a melacha, which is, if let's say opening up the door will set off an alarm, or will turn on the sensors and the lights will go on, or anything of that nature, then obviously you would not be allowed to go into the store. We're talking about just he gives you a key, and of course there has to be an eruv so that you can carry from one place to another. Let's say he gives you the key, you open up the store, you walk inside, take your item, use it. After Shabbat, you go over to the fellow and you pay him whatever it costs, $5 or whatever. Technically, that would be allowed. Clear? So far, so good? Clear? Yes.
You said about the lights, like sensor lights. I thought this situation happened when you walk into the store and it's like the light will turn on.
Yeah.
The motion.
Right.
That would be considered more.
Sure. Yeah. Sometimes people have that in their houses and they don't know that it's a problem. There are certain places that you go where just by walking a couple of steps up the guy's front, yard, you already see stuff starting to turn on. It's a problem.
All my neighbors have.
Yeah.
Like outside.
Yeah, it's an issue. Okay, good. Now, part of this is the extended idea that even if it's not related to business, but it's acquiring something in a different way. For example, a gift. You cannot give a gift on Shabbat. Giving a gift on Shabbat is, again, something that could potentially fall under this umbrella of what we call business, or things that are, again, it's not business, it's a gift, but it's similar to business in the sense that you're getting something. So therefore, Chazal said you cannot get a gift on Shabbat. So let's say you have a beautiful new dress for your friend, you want to give it to her, you cannot give that to her on Shabbat. Okay. However, if it's for the purposes of Shabbat, for example, let's say it's food for the Shabbat meal, or drinks for the Shabbat meal, or let's say that there's a mitzvah that is needed, like for example, lulav and etrog. Let's say it's the first day of Sukkot and the guy doesn't have a set of lulav and etrog, and you want to give him lulav and etrog as a gift, that is not a problem to give it to him as a gift at all. Hey, all right, leave it right there. Thank you so much. Okay.
Can you say that again? So if
Yeah.
you're allowed to give him the love and stuff?
Yes, you would be allowed to do that, because when you're giving the lulav and etrog, you're doing it for the purposes of a mitzvah. So for the purposes of a mitzvah, like let's say for Seudat Shabbat, or for the drinks or the food for Shabbat meal, or let's say a lulav and etrog to do the mitzvah with, that you can give it to him as a gift on Shabbat, no problem.
What about like
So now-
Shabbat clothes?
Is that considered to be a mitzvah? Possibly.
So,
I
like, to
didn't
have
see it.
beautiful-
I didn't see it brought down.
If someone brings nice clothes for your
It's a
child.
good question. It's a good question. I didn't see it brought down. But here's the solution for all of these things, okay? This is a very important thing that you should all know. Very important. It's called zechiyah. Zechiyah means, let's start off with the following statement. Zachin le'adam shelo befanav. Let's write that down in Hebrew. Zachin le'adam. Zachin means we can get something for someone. We can make someone the owner of something. Shelo befanav, even if he's not anywhere near, even if he is somewhere else. So for example, let's say you're walking down the street and you see
An owner
a
and-
beautiful, one second. Let's say you're walking down the street and you see a beautiful $100 bill on the railroad tracks, okay? You see it over there and you realize that there was somebody walking over here and he dropped the $100, and it's for sure at this point something which he's aware of, and he has now given up hope of ever finding his $100 again. The halacha says you're allowed to take that $100, put it in your pocket, and walk away with a big smile. Right? What?
On Shabbat?
Not Shabbat, not Shabbat, not Shabbat. I'm talking about not on Shabbat. No. I'm talking about general. General. On Tuesday. Okay. So why is this the case? Because the person gave up hope on it, which is called Yeush. He despaired of ever having it again. And therefore, it's now ownerless. And therefore, if you take it, you can go ahead and keep it. That's a general rule. There are exceptions to the rule. Like, let's say there's a way to find out who the owner is, and there are exceptions.
If it's in
But
somebody's
obviously, if it's in somebody's property, that's something else. But let's go with the general rule. Okay. Let's say that I happen to know that you need $100 very badly. So what I do is I pick up the $100 and I say, I'm picking up this $100 for Mrs. Hakim. Let's say, Hashem, you need $100. Just giving you an example, right? Say, here's $100, and I want to give you a gift. Let's make it easier like that, okay? I want to give you a gift. Here's $100. It's for Mrs. Hakim. Let's say somebody, God forbid, at that point, robs me, and he takes the $100. Who does he owe the money to? Me or you? You, because there's a concept called zachin le'adam shelo b'fanav, right? Which means that you can give something to somebody, even if that person is not there, right? So if let's say it was let's for argument's sake, instead of it being $100, a Gucci bag, right? What's the hottest item now? I don't even know anymore. Gucci, Coach,
Chanel.
Sorry, that's what I was like. Chanel bag, okay? Chanel bag, okay? No name, no owner. The person definitely despaired. And I know that this person would like the Chanel bag. Very good. I pick it up, even though you're nowhere to be found. But I know that this is what's called a zechut for you, which means it's a benefit for you. It's something which you would like and you would desire. And therefore, when I pick it up, I can do it for you. For anybody, okay? Any person in the world. So you could be in China. If I lift it up with you in mind, I acquired it for you. You're the owner of it now. Familiar with the concept?
Yeah.
What? Okay, great. That's called zachin le'adam shelo b'fanav. Okay. Now, let's bring that to our set of halachot. You want to give somebody a gift on Shabbat. You bought a brand new dress for somebody. Excellent. You know that they would love this. They need a dress. They love the dress. They really like it. They really want it. Fine. So you would like to give this to them on Shabbat as a gift. Can you give a gift on Shabbat? No. So what do? You gift it to them before Shabbat. How do you accomplish that? You go to another lady and you say to that lady, here is this gift. I want you to acquire it on behalf of Mrs. So-and-so. Okay? So they lift up the item, one tefach in the air, lift it up like this, and you have in mind you are acquiring it for that person. At that very moment, that person now owns this dress. So when you come on Shabbat and you give them that dress, it's already their dress. You're not gifting it to them now. You already gifted it to them before Shabbat. You're just giving it to them now. Clear?
Wait, so you go to a different house at Shabbat, and you tell them, I want you to.
Or it could be in your house, but it's somebody who's not related to you. It's not your husband, and it's not your children. It's somebody else. Somebody not from your immediate family.
And you tell them to raise it up and have it in mind.
And that person will have in mind that they are acquiring it for so-and-so.
Why can't you just do that yourself?
What?
Why can't you just acquire it yourself for that person?
You could have. At the time that you made the purchase, you could do that. But you forgot to. You bought a bunch of things, and as you're going through it, you're like, oh, wow, this could be amazing for so-and-so.
Oh, it has to be the
right?
time you buy it?
When you acquire it, you could acquire it for somebody else. If you already bought it and it's yours now and you want to gift it to somebody else, you simply hand it to someone else and that person lifts it up and acquires it for that person. And now that person who you want to gift it to is now the owner. Yeah.
Okay. Let's say I bought something specifically for that person before Shabbat. So I acquired it.
Excellent. Then you did it already.
But that, any gift for Shabbat, like let's say you bought a bottle of wine before Shabbat, you had in mind, okay, it's for this person I'm going to.
Excellent. If you acquired it when you lifted it up and took possession of it, you had that person in mind, you already did your job. You're done.
You're saying it's
I'm
like,
talking about if you already own it, it's yours, and now you would like to gift it to that person before Shabbat, you would need to have some other person come, lift up the item, acquire it for that person, and that's how you do it.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Let's say, like, we buy, like, let's say a piece of wine, and we have it in the basement.
Right.
And then, like, when we want people to see
Great.
pictures.
Yeah.
But if I have in mind that I'm going to take it in general to other people, like not a specific person, but it's for people that I be a guest of,
Mhm.
is that okay, or it has to be a specific person?
It's a great question.
'Cause I know I'm not, like, we're not drinking it, it's going.
You know that you are at the moment that you are acquiring it, you are gifting it to your friends.
It's specific for Shabbat. like,
Right.
when we go for
So remember, first of all, in this case, it's wine for the Shabbat meal, probably, right? Or as far as you're concerned, you're bringing it to them for a Shabbat meal.
Right.
They could do whatever they want with it, but as on your end, you're bringing it for a Shabbat meal, right? So you don't even need to gift it to them before Shabbat.
So does it have to be a year specific meal, just as long as it's for Shabbat?
Yeah.
Do you have
Right?
to tell them though, like, oh, this is for tonight?
No, it's almost like assumed that you're bringing it for that particular meal. I mean, usually they'll take it out and they'll just serve it. Now, they don't have to, they could keep it for later.
Sorry.
Yeah.
But let's say like my mom, like let's say she buys clothes for the kids, and then she'll come on Shabbat, that's when she'll give it to them.
Mhm.
She bought the clothes before then.
Right.
Is it
So
fine?
if they didn't do this before Shabbat, so I'm going to get to that point because there's an important point to make about that. But there's a general idea to bring out as well, which is what if the person who's giving you the gift is unaware of this rule and you don't want to say no to this fellow? I can't take a gift on Shabbat, etc. You don't want to give him a hard time. So now what you do is the following. You have the right to take it and have in mind, I'm not acquiring this until Shabbat's over. Right? It's not mine. In other words, if somebody were to come and steal it right now from me, it's not mine. They didn't steal it from me. I don't own it. I did not accept ownership of this thing on Shabbat. You have every right to do that. Now, there's another important concept, which I guess if we're already on the subject, there's a concept in halacha called yesh brera. Yesh brera means that sometimes it could be clarified after the fact what the original intention was.
Yesh barira.
Yesh brera, yeah. Which means that in the event of your wine bottles, for example, let's assume that you cannot give a wine bottle on Shabbat. Let's assume whatever. It's a problem. So there's a concept in halacha called yesh brera, which means that it's possible that we could say, when you bought this wine, you had in mind this entire case of wine is being purchased now for my group of friends. I don't know who they are. I don't know which bottle is going to whom, but I'm not owning this right now. I'm buying this for my friends. Now, you then at some point took a bottle and delivered it to friend A. It has now become retroactively clarified that when you made the purchase on this bottle was at that time gifted for this guy. You understand?
You can tell them
What?
that when I bought, I had this in my mind.
If they're nervous about it, sure, you can
Yeah.
tell them. Yeah, definitely. So you can tell them that. And I believe that in this case it would work because over here we're dealing with something which is only rabbinic, and for rabbinic things we rely on this concept, yesh brera. So, and we're going to see shortly where else this comes into effect. I'll give you another example right now. Let's say you're a shul, you have a synagogue, or you're on a kids program, and you've got all kinds of prizes that you buy for the kids. Now, there's one prize which is, I don't know, some kind of toy. There's another prize which is a different kind of toy. There's basketball cards, there's balls, there's all kinds of, whatever it is that you're giving the kids, right? So now, if the kid wins a prize on Shabbat, technically you'd say, well, he's owning the prize now, right? So that's a problem. He's becoming an owner. He's acquiring something on Shabbat. It's an issue, which it is an issue. So how do you avoid that? This would be the proper way to do it, I would think. which is when you buy it, you have in mind that everything I'm buying right now is for these kids. Now, I don't know which prize is going to go to who, but we can rely on the fact that retroactively, it will be clarified once we give it to that kid that when I got it, it was originally meant to go to him. I believe that works over here. Yeah.
I'm just a little confused.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm stretching it so much. But like, usually when you buy a gift for someone, like let's say in the case of my mom buying clothes,
Right.
she's buying it for them.
Right.
So it's not something she's buying for herself and then giving it. When she bought it, it was for them. So why
Great.
would that be an issue when she bought it?
If she literally bought it for them, then, in
Literally
other words, when she
told-
lifted it up, she said, I am hereby, but she was thinking at least, I am
100%,
acquiring this for those kids.
for sure.
Then she did it for them.
So that's not an
Yeah,
issue.
I would not think it's an issue on Shabbat.
But when would you think it's an issue?
What?
Something that's yours and you decide to give it to the person?
Yeah, exactly.
What about like borrowing, like all like.
Ooh, we'll get to borrowing in a second. Very good. Excellent question. Borrowing is a big one. Now, I just want to point out something else. Like I said before, when you decide to do this method of zechia, which means that you give over the item to someone else in order to acquire it for this person before Shabbat, that method must be using another person besides your immediate family. The reason you cannot use your husband for that is because you and your husband are the same hand. You're considered to be basically giving it to yourself. It doesn't go anywhere. So you need somebody else to acquire it, somebody who's not from your immediate family, and that's a different domain, taking it from you, acquiring it for the other person. So I just wanted to be clear about that. You can't give it to your husband to do it, or your kids. It needs to be somebody else, another friend. A sibling who is an adult. That's not, that could be good. Okay, good. Okay, very good. Spoke about all these things. Excellent. Next. Let's see where borrowing is. Yeah, we'll get to borrowing. Okay, good. On Shabbat, similarly, Chazal said that we are not allowed to weigh anything or measure anything unless it's for the purpose of a mitzvah. So what that means is, if you need right now to know exactly that you've got, let's say a kilo of, let's say a precise amount of sugar is needed, or a specific amount of whatever you can come up with, right? No weighing or measuring. So if let's say a person wants to go on the scale on Shabbat to see whatever it is, it's a mechanical scale, one of the old ones, you cannot weigh yourself on Shabbat, nor can you measure certain things on Shabbat. We do not measure anything unless we're dealing with no measuring on Shabbat. You got it. Okay. Unless it's for the purposes of a mitzvah. So, for example, like if you want to measure your height on Shabbat, you want to take out that tape, whatever, and measure your height. You cannot measure your height on Shabbat. Because again, these are things that are very similar to the world of business where they weigh the product and they measure the product and give you things by a certain thing, which is very similar to business. So therefore, Chazal said, off limits. But if let's say you want to know if this cup has 3 ounces and therefore I could use it for the 4 cups of wine on Pesach, or if you want to know if this amount of matzah is enough to be considered a kazait and you're putting it on a mechanical scale, that's okay, because that's for the purposes of a mitzvah. But not for the purposes of a mitzvah, you cannot measure on Shabbat. You're allowed to measure medicine and drink directly from the medicine spoons. For example, let's say you've got, what was it? You know those Advil? Those liquid Advils that they give the kids in the medicine spoon. So that's okay. Why? Because you can drink directly from the spoon and use it as a spoon. You understand? But if you're just using it to measure, then you pour it into a different spoon, that you can't do because that's being used as a measuring That's just for measurement, so that's no good.
But for
You're-
the sake of health, I feel like it's always okay, right?
So
For
if there's a
the-
way around it, you're supposed to get around it.
Like if your kids have strep and you need to use those syringes
Yeah.
and you have to give them their doses. I feel like when it comes to health, it's okay, right?
So the thing is, you need to do it in a way that,
Ointments,
yeah, you want to do it in a way where you're not measuring specifically to a set size, or if you need to, then use that item as the item that you're going to actually.
oh, but you use
Take it.
that.
Then there's no
already.
problem. There's no problem.
What is
Okay.
for a baby? Like you fill in the bottle with the baby from that.
Okay, so the bottle
Measure
again
the
is
milk.
something that you're going to be drinking from, right? I mean, the baby's going to drink from.
But you're bringing in a syringe, and then you're putting it in the bottle. Like you dry it up in syringe and then you put it in.
Oh, meaning the thing that you pull up. Yeah, well, that's just the method to pull it up. You're saying at that time you actually happen to be measuring what's going.
Like if it was for my older
Okay.
kids, it would just be on the syringe, but for the baby, let's say like she won't drink it.
No, that's different because, again, that's how you pull it up, right? That's how you are extracting it.
No, but it has a
Right.
measurement on it. That's how you know how much you get. If there's measurements on the syringe.
I hear. You can't use it. You can't feed it from that thing either.
She won't.
Can
let's say she
you-
won't drink it, But I have to mix it with something
Okay,
on the bottom.
you're saying that's how much maybe there's room to be lenient for a baby. I'm not sure. I think probably there's room to
Or
be
you
lenient.
put powder and you mix it with water, formula.
Yeah, no, but
that-
where do you do that? You do that in the bottle, right? So that's good, 100%.
No, but you have this cup, so you should use the cup.
Which cup? The scooper. The
yeah.
scooper is how you scoop, right? That's how you scoop, right? Yeah. Okay, no, 100%. The scooper is good. Okay, so you're allowed to use those indicators on the baby bottle because the baby drinks from it. That's okay. You're allowed to measure the temperature of the baby with a thermometer, or anybody with a thermometer, because for the purposes of knowing what to do with this guy if he has a fever or not.
For
That's
their
okay.
health.
Yeah, that's okay.
Do they
Okay.
have to exhibit serious signs of sickness?
No, you have to if they are showing symptoms of fever, whatever you want to know, it's okay.
Not the electric.
Not the electric. We're talking about the mercury. Yeah. Okay. Correct. No raffles on Shabbat either. Cannot have raffles. So that's an interesting thing because a raffle is also very similar to a type of.
But I wouldn't give
business.
mercury to a little baby, like those.
The
to, like-
thermometer that you stick in.
Yeah, with mercury, like
What's the
the
non?
glass ones.
You
with
wouldn't
the-
use that.
Not for like a little child, like under 4 or 5.
Okay. I don't know.
Because they could bite the glass and it's very
So,
dangerous.
There's another.
Like one time
There's another option.
my 2-year-old I gave her my glass cup. She actually bit gold off of it.
Okay.
She didn't bite, like she didn't
Yeah.
break the glass, but she actually took the gold off of the cup.
I hear.
It
Okay.
was very cute, but like
Okay, come.
I don't know.
So another idea. So again, raffles are a problem as well on Shabbat because it is similar to buying and to selling, meaning the kid is acquiring a prize or whatever through a raffle. So that is something that should not be done on Shabbat. One possible way of doing it is by saying that whoever wins the raffle actually doesn't get the prize, but he's going to get asked the question. And if he gets the question right, then he'll be able to get that prize. And that's not winning through a raffle. That's just answering the question right and getting it based on that.
But they
But
always
the
do-
mechanism
they have
of a
coupons.
raffle
They
on
always have-
Shabbat is a problem. What?
But they always have like kids get tickets.
Right.
and
So you
then
have
they-
to do it the right way. If the kids are winning a prize based on a raffle, so that according to the poskim is considered to be a problem. So it should be that they're not winning it based on the raffle. It could be that they just get prizes for what they're doing. They davened well, he gets a prize, or you know what I'm saying?
But
it
that's
has
not what they do.
So then what you do is you could draw the raffle after Shabbat. Draw the raffle on Sunday, But to draw a raffle and to win a prize based on the raffle on Shabbat, some say is a problem. It seems to be a problem. Okay. Another thing to think about, no cheshbonot on Shabbat. No calculating. Things like you're sponsoring the Kiddush over here, Baruch Hashem, and as the different dishes are coming out, you're saying, how much is this thing costing me? I've got this, I've got that. You start worrying about all these different things that you have to worry about.
By no calculating.
You should not be doing cheshbonot, which means calculating certain things, how much they cost. I'll read it to you inside.
What about
Person should not start making his calculations on Shabbat. I spent this much on this, and I made this much over here. And you start doing calculations on Shabbat. Why is that a problem? Because it may lead the person to write down his calculations. It's much easier to see everything in front of you than to keep it all in your head. And that is a problem. Okay? So that's something that we should not do on Shabbat. On the other hand, he writes the cheshbonot she'en behem tzorech l'Shabbat mutar min adin l'cheshbon b'Shabbat kigon kach v'gach hotzenu b'chupat b'nenu. In other words, if you're trying to say to yourself like a historical point, wow, weddings back in the day were so much cheaper. How much did we spend on the this and that? Oh, that was just, I don't know, $5,000. Oh, $5,000 for a wedding, amazing. Oh, those are the good old days, right? Start talking about things in the past, that's not a problem because they're irrelevant to today, right? But things that are relevant and you start calculating them and they are something that you do want to know, we're afraid you're going to write it down. Okay. Yes.
Are we worried about that for like cheshbon nefesh?
Cheshbon nefesh.
You don't want to write
Wow.
down.
Wow. So that's a great question. Cheshbon nefesh is a great thing to do, but I don't think that there's a fear of writing it down, especially for a mitzvah like that. Make cheshbon nefesh, which is one of the greatest things you can do. I wouldn't see a problem.
What's that mean?
Cheshbon nefesh means for a person to calculate how he did in that day, that week. I davened with a lot of kavanah, but unfortunately I spoke lashon hara, but I gave tzedakah. But you do a calculation of what I did right, what I did wrong. Yeah, that's something which is tremendous. And if a person can do that on a daily basis and write it down, it's huge, huge.
We wouldn't worry about that.
What? I don't think we would worry because for such a big mitzvah, I think we would let it go, of course. Okay, lending on Shabbat. Okay, so before we talk about lending, we have to understand something very important. You should know, there is a rule. You are never allowed to lend money to somebody, ever, unless you take proof from that person that this person admits that he owes you the money. You must have some form of proof. Let's say you come to me, you ask me for $100. Say, I'll give it back to you in a month. I say, okay, no problem. So I need one of three things. I either need that we have a document where you write on the document that I so-and-so borrowed $100 from me, and then you have witnesses sign it, or you sign it, your own signature, or we have witnesses watch the transaction of me giving you $100 and they see that I indeed lent you the money. The reason for this is because the Torah tells us you're not allowed to put a stumbling block in front of a blind man. What that means is that you cannot give someone the opportunity to fail at a mitzvah. In this case, the opportunity to fail is giving someone the ability to steal from you. If you do not take proof from this fellow that he is admitting to you to being indebted to you, so then you are now putting a stumbling block in front of him, because if you then go to him and say, hey, you borrowed $100 from me, pay me back. Well, he'll tell you, where's the proof? If I borrowed money, prove it. And that's the golden rule all throughout the Torah, that if I have a claim against you that you owe me money, the burden of proof is on me, not on the defendant. And I can't prove it because I never took proof from you. So Chazal made it very clear. I'm never allowed to lend you any money unless I take proof from you that you are admitting to owing me money. At that point, I can lend you the money. Otherwise, I cannot. That's step one. And it's important to know that rule is in full effect unless you're really giving it as a gift. Sometimes you lend money, but really you know that you're never going to see this money again. You know, there's such a thing. You know, sometimes you give somebody a loan, and as you're giving the loan, you're saying bye-bye. You know?
But so then why
Right?
would you do it?
Because you know, this is the guy, this is the person, this is who it is.
I know,
This is the
but
person
it's
who it
not a
is.
good, but I feel like it's gonna create
Listen, some people, this is what it is. When I was living in Brooklyn, I was once in Landau's shul, which is the minion factory for Shacharit one morning. And you never know who you're going to bump into over there. And I bumped into somebody that morning. This was a fellow from Panama. This guy was the biggest tzaddik. He was such a Talmid Chacham. He learned from morning till night. He was such a Jew on fire. I was so happy to see this guy that, I couldn't believe it. I hadn't seen him in years. And I see him, and I was so excited that I said Shechianu on him. It says if you see a good friend you haven't seen, I haven't been in touch with him in years. I was so happy to see this guy who was such a tzaddik. I said B'Shem Malchut Shechianu v'Kimanu v'Yam Hazman Hazeh on this guy. Okay,
Can
great.
you not do that during the 9 days?
What?
Can you not do
On
that
Shabbat you can. On Shabbat, not during the 9 days. You're
And
right.
I don't know.
So not or the 3 weeks.
I didn't know you could make a shechianu on a person.
Yeah. Now it's funny because a few minutes later, I saw another guy from Yeshiva that I also haven't seen in, I have no idea how many years, a really long time. But this guy constantly came to ask me for money. He always borrowed money and never paid back, ever. I did not say Shechianu on that guy. Not even close. There's such a thing. You give them money, and you know it's never coming back. It is what it is. So you're giving him a gift, basically. Okay, fine. So if that's your intention, then you're allowed to do it. You don't have to take anything because basically it's a gift. Now, over here, there's an important rule that Shulchan Aruch tells us. In Hebrew, there are two words for borrow. There's a halva'ah. Halva'ah means a loan. And the loan that we're referring to could be anything that is consumed. For example, I could lend you money. I could lend you pieces of chicken. I could lend you apples. I could lend you falas. I could lend you, let's say, 100 liters of milk. And then you give me back 100 liters of milk, right? It's a loan. Loan meaning you're going to consume what I give you. You're going to finish what I give you. You're going to give me back the same of that item. It's 100, you give me back 100. That's a loan. Then there's something called a she'elah. She'elah means to borrow an object and return it after you're done using it. Like, I need to borrow your lawnmower. I'm not consuming your lawnmower. I'm just going to use your lawnmower. Okay? Right? So we don't have that. We don't have those two words in English.
There is a she'elah.
She'elah is where you are borrowing an object to use it, right? So the idea being that if you say to somebody, halveni, which means lend me something that I am going to consume, and then I will provide you with a brand new one for you, whether it's money or whether it's any other kind of object that I consume and then give you a new one. So that Chazal said you cannot say to somebody on Shabbat because of the fear that, as we just learned, if I am borrowing from you something, you are supposed to go ahead and take note of that in order that you should have proof that I borrowed from you, and then you will be able to prove that I indeed owe you this that you claim I borrowed. So therefore, It's a problem to say to somebody, halveni, which is implying that kind of method of lending. So instead, Chazal say, you have to say, hashileni. Hashileni means lend me the object as if to say that I'm giving you back the same item. Because if you say it that way, that will be a reminder to the person, that will be a sign that it's not something that I'm going to be taking for a long time and then eventually giving back to you after a long time, that you need to write something down to remember that I owe you this money. You need to get me to write it down and sign it, that you should have proof that I took this money. It's going to be a 1-2 thing. I'm borrowing a liter of milk. I'm giving you back a liter of milk after Shabbat.
What's the thing you can say?
So in Hebrew, it's halveni, which means lend me, versus hashileni, which is also in English, lend me. But the point, but the difference being that lend me, hashileni means, and I'm going to give it back to you quickly, as if to say that it's like a lawnmower that I'm going to borrow and then give right back to you. So therefore, there's no need to write down this thing. So what do you do in English? There is no halveni, there is no hashileni. So you say, give me. Point is, don't say, let me borrow. Don't say, lend me. Say, give me. And the understanding will be, I'll give you back. But the point is, there's no need for you to write anything down. That's the idea.
So how veni means what?
What?
How
Halveni means lend me something that I'm going to use. And it has the connotation of over a long period of time. So therefore, you shouldn't say halveni, right? But you could say hashileni, which means let me use it and I'll give it back to you right away.
So if someone
And in English, you just give me.
So let's say like when I borrow something from somebody, they give me something and then I go ahead and I buy them a brand new one. That's what I do if I get something from somebody. Like if someone's nice enough to lend me something, I'll go ahead and I'll use it and then I'll just buy them a brand new one. So if I do that, is that wrong to borrow on Shabbat? I mean, if I don't buy it for them on Shabbat.
Again,
Like,
one more time. What happened?
Let's say you don't have salt.
Okay.
Okay, and you need to go to a neighbor on Shabbat and ask for some salt or oil or sugar or whatever, and you
Can I have
use
some salt, please?
Yeah,
Not
like
bad.
I don't know, something, and then let's say like I like to be courteous. I like to, instead of if I use something from somebody, instead of just giving it back to them, I like to go buy a brand new one and then.
Yeah.
So are you allowed, if that's the way you do things,
Yeah.
are you allowed to ask for something on Shabbat if you don't have it?
Yeah, sure.
If you're like,
That's
gonna
your own
have the
calculation you make
intention-
later. That's okay. That's okay. That's no problem. Because that's got nothing to do with Shabbat. You're just saying, can I please have some salt? And they give you. Now you decide you want to give them a gift. Okay. Give them a gift. Enjoy. No problem.
after.
Yeah, no problem. Okay. Another important point about loans is that you shouldn't get repaid for a loan on Shabbat. So in other words, let's say you had lent the person, they were making a Sheva Berachot last week, and she needed 10 challahs from you, and you gave her 10 beautiful home-baked challahs, and now this Shabbat she shows up with 10 challahs for you. Don't get repaid on Shabbat. Now the reason for this is, again, because you may come to, if you had written it down that she borrows 10 challahs, you might come to erase that now, right? That's a big problem. Also, I mean, the rule, why is that, by the way? This is another important one, but in the laws of loans. When you get paid back, you must immediately take that document that has that guy's signature or the witnesses or whatever and destroy it automatically. God forbid to keep that document in your possession 1 extra second. It says that's considered to be keeping something like evil in your possession. It's not good because once you have it, once you get paid back, you got to destroy the document because we're afraid you may be tempted to recollect that payment as if you never were paid before. So you have to get rid of it right away. So therefore, do not receive payments for a loan on Shabbat. Obviously, we're not talking in terms of money because that's muktzeh anyway, but we're afraid you may come to erase it, and therefore that's a problem. Also, it's brought down that you should not be forgiving loans on Shabbat. Because again, that would cause you to erase something. or to that's not good. The only time that would be okay is if it is for a poor person, therefore that would be considered an act of tzedakah. That's a good thing. Okay? Guys got that? So if you want to forgive a loan to somebody who is a poor person, that's fine because that's a big mitzvah to do that. All right? I'm done. Okay. Okay. If we have any questions. Yeah, okay, yes.
So if we're giving a gift to someone, you said you have to give it more to do a big smell. Let's say you bring someone a cake on Shabbat, then no one touches the cake, no instrument. Is that a problem? Because like it's not even being used.
Because meaning why would it be a problem?
Because you were saying like, let's say you say you have to give it.
You brought it for Shabbat. You brought it as a gift for Shabbat for the Suda.
Right, and then no one eats it.
Okay, but at least it
Or
looks
they don't
nice,
open
right?
it.
It looks nice. It looks like a good
You
cake.
bring something and someone doesn't open it.
Yeah, that's okay.
I think it's
That's
weird.
okay. You brought it for Shabbat. You did yours, and they decide they don't want to use it now. That's their thing.
Well, also
Yeah.
wine, like someone could bring you wine and they might not necessarily use it.
Right.
They open it.
Yeah.
We measured 2 kids back to back to see like which one's taller, which one's more. Or is that
You're
like-
actually using like a real tape measure.
No, just like against each other.
Oh yeah, that's okay.
That's
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, that's not real measure. It's a good point you bring up. Actually, now that I mentioned you mentioned it. If you ever want to measure and you don't care about being precise, that's also fine. So in other words, if you are looking for approximately X amount, in other words, you don't need exactly a cup. It could be a little bit more, a little bit less. That measuring is fine because that's not exact. The measuring that we care about, I didn't mention this. The measuring that we care about on Shabbat is measuring that is exact measurements, right? If it's not an exact, if you don't care for exact measurements, then that would not present a problem. Thank you.
Yeah, so something like for Rosh Chodesh Av, and are you allowed to?
Sorry, are we done with Shabbat questions?
we're done with
We're going
Shabbat.
to Hilchot Shabbat? Okay, great.